Story 1. The Silent Passenger. I'm an EMT in Queens, and last night I drove a ghost to the hospital. The kind that knows your name, wears your wristband, and keeps asking to go home. I told myself he'd slid off the stretcher on a turn, that the straps had worked loose, that I'd find him curled on the floor muttering my name into the mop gray rubber mat. But when I swung the rear doors at Elmhurst, the cot was still buckled, the sheets hospital tight, the cardiac monitor idling like a sleeping eye. No footprints on the diamond plate. No body. Only the faintest fog on the rear window where a face might have been, an oval bloom already fading as August air rushed in. Dispatch crackled, Unit 12, status on your transport? I stared at the signature line on the intake clipboard I'd set on the bench before we started rolling. My name was there, smooth and looping, timestamped 5 minutes earlier, while I'd been driving. From the cab, the rear view tilted itself in the slightest tremor of the idling engine, and for a heartbeat I saw him seated upright on the cot, mouth shaping the same syllables, eyes bright as wet coins. Then the mirror settled, and the stretcher was empty again. Mendoza at triage listened with the same face she used for drunk cuffs and Friday night panic, then glanced at the immaculate cot and back at me. Name? She asked. He didn't give one, I said, and heard how thin it sounded. Security shuffled up, Leon, the night guy with the ring of keys that could start a train, and promised to pull the bay cameras. While he was gone, I thumbed the face sheet I'd left on the bench. A patient label had been affixed slightly crooked, the printer ink still tacky. My eyes stuttered over it once, twice. It wasn't the John Doe sticker they slap on unconscious transports. It was my name, "Dill be dead on," MRN I'd seen on my own flu shot form last winter. You put this on? Mendoza asked, already half turned toward the next crisis. I shook my head, and the radio at my shoulder hissed like a kettle just before it screams. Leon came back scratching his beard. Camera froze right as you backed in, static in those bars like old TV. Weird. I climbed into the rig to reset the monitor and found a rhythm strip cached under an unassigned chart. 3 minutes of near flatline with little teeth of noise chewing through it. I tapped play on the audio tag and heard breath scraping the mic, syllables formed without sound shaping my name. I deleted the file. It blinked and returned, timestamp 3:14. A new bloom of fog printed itself on the inside of the rear window in a perfect oval, then thinned as if it had inhaled. Unit 12 returned to post, dispatch said. I put the rig in drive and pointed it back toward the lamppost. The block was rinsed in the sodium orange that makes Queens feel like a dream you can smell, bleach, bakery steam, the iron breath of the 7 rumbling somewhere above. The lamppost leaned the way drunks do when they want to look sober. No patient, no smear of blood, just a crescent of crushed filter and a scuff in the grime where someone's heel had worried at the curb. I clicked on my scene light. That's when I saw it, a hospital wristband curled at the base of the pole like a shed skin. The adhesive had gone gray with street dust, but the label was clean as if it had just been printed. My name in block letters. My date of birth. The barcode I'd watched the nurse scan at my physical last winter. I snapped a photo and the image on my phone blinked. First the band, then an empty square of sidewalk as if it had never been there. In the rig, the patient cot straps lay in tidy figure eights, exactly the way I leave them before a call. The bench cushion creaked behind me. Not that dramatic exorcist groan, just a small human shift like somebody adjusting to keep a hip from going numb. I kept my eyes on the rear view. The mirror made a tunnel of the box. At the far end, something darker than the dark sat on the cot, shoulders rounded, mouth working. I swallowed down my own name and asked out loud, "What do you want?" The radio answered first, Unit 12, Priority 1, unresponsive male, unknown age. The address came in a beat later, each number landing like a fingertip on my spine. It was my building. 3rd floor. Apartment 3B. My apartment. I didn't key up. I didn't breathe. In the mirror, the lips shaped it again, my name, then another word I could almost hear, home. I took Northern Boulevard with the box dark and the siren off. If there was a guy dying in my living room, he didn't need a parade. The rear view hung there like a black mouth. When the potholes evened out, the shape on the cot steadied and formed the word again. Home, without sound. Dispatch kept pinging for an ETA. I thumbed the mic and said, "On scene," before I'd even parked. The lie felt warm on my teeth. My building wears its grime like makeup. The super tapes over the stairwell glass with a flyer no one reads. 3rd floor, 3B. The door was open just enough to refuse blame. I nudged it with my boot and let the hall's tired light pour in. The place was the way I'd left it. Takeout cartons mid-collapse, spider plant clinging to brown, the one wedding invite held to the fridge by a chipped magnet. On the coffee table lay an Elmhurst intake clipboard I didn't own, my name printed twice, a signature time stamped 314 in someone else's neat hand. From the bedroom came a sound I could pick out across stadiums and parking lots. The dry, shallow pull of a body trying to remember how to breathe. The bedroom smelled like radiator dust and old breath. On the mattress lay a copy of me, boots on, uniform shirt untucked, face slack with that blue at the lips you don't mistake once you've learned it. My wrist wore a hospital band, the adhesive gone gummy but the print crisp. My name, my birth date, timestamp 314. I dropped the first in bag on the rug and went automatic. Gloves, check airway. The jaw was loose, tongue fallen. Back, snoring respiration scraping the soft palate. I slid an NPA past the turbinate, watched the chest hitch, cracked the D-tank and bled 15 liters into a non-rebreather while I squeezed the bag. The lips moved under the mask, shaping my name like he was reading it off my badge. There's a thrift store mirror on my dresser that I never hung straight. Now it showed 2 rooms stapled together, the box of the rig faintly overlaying my bedroom's sagging walls. The monitor that wasn't there was there anyway, leads snaked across the carpet to a screen showing almost flat line with tiny teeth of noise. The clock digits burned 314 and wouldn't budge. I thumbed the radio for a medic intercept and heard my own voice answer back from the speaker, distorted and far. Unit 12, status? The body on the bed bucked once against the bag, eyes snapping open to meet mine. From the mask's fluttering valve, I finally heard it, soft as a leak. Home. I counted compressions out loud though no one was there to hear them, watched the digits on a clock that wasn't mine refuse to turn. The bag hissed like a secret, the valve fluttering with the barest agreement. His eyes, my eyes, tracked past me toward the doorway, toward the corridor, toward the place the mirror kept trying to show. The rig, its doors yawning, the cot already edged out like a tongue. Home, he said again, and the word felt less like a request than a reminder. The wristband sloughed loose from his skin and found mine with a papery kiss. The adhesive bit. On the dresser mirror, the 2 rooms slid into one and held. I stopped counting. Okay, I told him. I'll take you. When I climbed back into the cab, the box settled as if a weight had chosen a corner. I drove to Elmhurst with the lights off and told dispatch I was transporting one. At the bay, Mendoza called, "Status?" And I said his name, my name, and it sounded like an answer that fit no question. I swung the rear doors and found the cot made to inspection standard, straps in their figure 8s, an oval of breath already fading from the window. The face sheet on the bench wore my label, neat and new. Some nights since, we drift the burrow until the clocks behave. I head for the bay and he practices my name in the mirror so I won't forget where to take him. And every time we pull up, there's no one to hand over, just a stretcher tight as a bed someone keeps making for me. Story 2. Echoes in the abandoned lot. Every medic has a knock on the rig. The night mine started knocking back, a dying man whispered, "Don't open that door." Night shifts in Cleveland teach you to trust patterns. The blood pressure cuff hisses, the monitor chirps, and your partner gives that 2-knock signal on the aluminum when she needs you to stop rolling or hand up gear. City noise becomes a metronome you can work inside without thinking. That's how you keep from getting spooked when alleys breathe and lake wind threads through rebar like a flute. The night this happened, the pattern slipped by millimeters. just enough to shave slivers off my nerves. Dispatch sent us to a man down behind dumpsters in an unlit lot where Euclid dissolves into brick and weeds. No cruiser on scene yet, caller disconnected, the usual coin flip between nothing and the story that lives under your ribs. We rolled in dark so our eyes could catch the moon snagged on a fire escape. Rios went to the body, male 50s, folded near the dumpsters like he tried to sit and forgot how. I swung my light for needles, bottles, anyone waiting to turn our night into paperwork. 3 soft taps touched the side of the box, fingertips on aluminum right where we knock when we're ready to move. Not wind. Not the lot. I pivoted the beam. Nothing but our rear handle winking like an indifferent eye. Got a pulse, Rios said. Slow, shallow. She slid in an NPA while I swept under the rig and behind the wheels. Blast. A flattened receipt. No feet. No shadow. His lips moved like they were stuck to tape. I bent close and caught the thread when air finally cooperated. Don't open that door, he whispered. He wasn't facing the rig, wasn't looking at me, and nobody had said where I was standing. My mouth outran my brain. Which door? He dragged his eyes up, glassy, deliberate, and found mine. Don't open that door, he said again. Load and go, Rios said, and we packaged him fast. The taps followed us as we wheeled him. 3 quick, then a pause like someone counting beats to stay in time. The rear doors shut with a click that felt like sealing something in with us. I took the driver's seat and pushed for Metro, telling myself Cleveland plays tricks with sound and steel. Bridges tick, sirens bounce, and you can explain almost anything if you want to sleep later. Halfway down Carnegie, 3 taps landed just behind my door on the driver's side. 30 seconds later, 3 on the curbside by the sliding door. I hit the intercom. You knocking on stuff back there? I'm busy keeping your new friend breathing, Rios said. Why? She gave our normal 2 knock on the partition out of habit. A heartbeat later, 3 taps from outside, not quite matching, just enough off to make my teeth hurt. The monitor squealed, Rios swore. He's bradying down. Pressure's garbage. I'll going in. Tell Metro we're hot. I radioed the alert and tapped the partition twice, routine so she'd know I heard. A second after, 2 confident knocks answered from somewhere that wasn't the partition and wasn't inside. The rear camera showed 2 fogged prints on the back window, high up. 4 fingers on one, 3 on the other, as if something taller than me had leaned in and breathed against the glass. We hit the bay and muscle memory took over. Brake, hop out, grab the handle. My thumb was on the latch when his voice came through the metal like the door itself was a membrane. Don't open that door. The triage doc was already walking toward us. The bay lights cut bright squares into the concrete. I slid sideways, popped the side door instead, and clambered in. Rios stared like the math didn't add up. What are you doing? Something's outside, I said, wishing I'd chosen literally any other words. We rolled him out sideways, ugly but effective. Rios pumping compressions while 2 nurses grabbed the rails. Fluorescent salvation swallowed us, and we worked him until the clock made liars of our hands. Time of death. The room exhaled. Back at the rig, the rear window was clear, but above the latch, on the inside, 4 interrupted streaks trailed down in dry grime, like 3-fingered hands had tried to drag the door open from where nothing had any right to be. It's nothing, I said. Shut up, Rios said. Calls don't stop because your world is off by a 1/4 inch. We kept working, but the pattern didn't reset. On a domestic, the taps traced the side rails. Mid-transfer, the rear latch jiggled quick, like someone who knew exactly how to pop it if I hadn't locked it. I stopped locking out of stubborn superstition. I didn't care. We retired our crew knock. Habit almost killed the both of us, or that's what it felt like, so we switched to words. Radio, intercom, anything to starve whatever was echoing us. I wrote up a complaint, mechanical anomalies during transport. The shop shrugged. Wind, the tech said. These roads. I know the difference between pothole harmonics and knuckles. The taps kept learning our rhythm. 3 weeks later we were staged under the inner belt, city dripping after a lake storm, me restocking EKG electrodes, Rio scrolling in her hoodie. 3 taps kissed the rear door. Then 3 on the side. Then 3 again on the rear, closer now, like a Morse sender who knows you're finally listening. My hand started counting without asking me. The cadence stitched itself just after the monitor's chirp, every 60 seconds playing in the pocket between our beeps like it was trying us on for size. The intercom coughed up the patient's whisper from nowhere. Don't open that door. Not a warning so much as a habit the city had learned to repeat. I stood anyway, palms settling on cold aluminum, pressure without pull, testing how much of me was superstition and how much was hunger for an answer. Don't, Rio said from the cab, flat, command voice. The smart one in the room. I sat back down. The taps went on for another minute, then stopped the way a monitor does when the electrodes lose skin contact. A silence with edges. Dispatch blessed us with a nosebleed convinced it was dying. The kid cried, the bleed quit, and I gave him a popsicle. For 20 minutes, the world felt simple again. At home the next morning, my garage smelled like wet cardboard and detergent, the kind of mundane that saves you. I balanced a basket of uniforms on my hip, keys between my teeth, hand on the interior door, and remembered the exact weight of the rig's handle. 3 neat taps sounded on the other side of my garage door. Metal to metal, my new code, the one I hadn't used since that lot. A second later, 3 more like a kid repeating your name. My garage doesn't face a street. It faces a short dead end of fence and the back of a thrift store with dead cameras. No sidewalk. Nowhere for anyone to stand except close enough to breathe on the weather stripping. I set the basket down on the kitchen tile and backed away. I can live with mildew. I'm not bringing an echo inside. Patterns keep us alive. We ride inside them and sometimes we change them, but some patterns want the one rule that keeps them stuck outside to fail. If you work nights long enough, you'll hear it. The blind, patient tempo along your aluminum skin, learning your timing, trying to find your hand. When the taps line up with the beeps, and the beeps line up with the road bumps, and the road bumps sound like your partner's old tune-knock, remember a man behind a dumpster who spent his last air on a sentence. Don't open that door. Story 3. The man on the highway median, at 2 a.m. on a dead stretch of I-10, our dashcam caught the man my partner swore didn't exist, this time leaning into our windshield. At 2 in the morning, I-10 is a tuning fork, concrete humming, desert flattened into rumor, the world narrowed to white lines and whatever our headlights decide is real. We just cleared a call in Buckeye, the cab lacquered in post-call quiet, when the median lifted into our beams like a pale riverbed cut with stubble. He was standing there, perfectly centered, perfectly still, hands clasped low as if he were waiting his turn. Hey, I said, too calm while my brain voted on whether something was happening. Hector tapped the turn signal out of habit. See what? He asked, and we shot past, my pulse arriving late and cold. Back at base I pulled the dashcam card, the little green timestamp making us honest. We scrubbed to the mile marker. The world flickered with that cheap dashcam strobe. There he was, a figure where the beams bloom and thin, light breaking around him instead of on him, hands folded neat, facing us like he'd been expecting our unit. We watched it again. A jolt, a smear, closer now, the black between us shorter, the suggestion of a collar, the tightening line where a mouth might be. On the 4th pass the frame fizzed green and, inside that static, he seemed to tip forward, as if peering into the windshield still 50 yards away. Hector killed the video. Nope. Trash it, he said. We didn't. We labeled it by date and pretended we were done. Outside, the desert was big quiet, chain link clacking, interstate roaring like surf. Probably just a guy, Hector said. People go weird places when their cars die. We let that version live for a night, like a bandage you know won't hold. Paramedics are superstitious and call it protocol. We don't talk about the zipper sound some people make when they die, or how quiet houses feel cold in August. We didn't talk about the man either, which worked until he showed up again. Different night, Eastbound this time, empty cot, Gatorade tired. The median had squeezed to a concrete ribbon, and he balanced on it like a line walker. Heat lightning flashed and refused him a face. The air thickened the way panic does, the radio spat pressure into my ear, and my scalp hurt where a helmet wasn't. We slid past, watched. We pulled the card again because not looking had started to feel like lying. The dashcam flattened the world into rectangles and rolled them at us. He drifted to the exact center of the frame, not forward but nearer by implication, like a reflection that persists even with daylight behind you. No face, only deeper black where eyes should be, hands still folded, excuse me polite. In the fuzz on his chest, an oval emblem resolved, backward like a mirror, our unit number, impressed as if into soft clay. After that we tried to map him by absence, taking surface streets until dispatch scolded us. In daylight, on my day off, I parked on the shoulder and crossed to the median. Wind off a box truck lifted the hair on my arms. The gravel was glass-scarred and sparkly as frost. In a hollow of weeds, a penny lay melted into tar, proof of some heat the road had once been soft enough to remember. A horn bellowed close, air turning to a shove. My foot slipped, my hand skinned against the rail, and for a blink I was nowhere, between shoulder and lanes, between storms, and the stupid, enormous truth arrived. He wasn't on the road. He was in our lane. He stood where we live most nights, between arrival and departure, the calm questions and the answers no one can give. The next time, westbound and empty again, I told Hector, hold 35. Don't slow. We became our own hazard. A truck flashed and fled our wake. As we drew even, I raised my hand, not a wave, palm in like I ask a patient to show me their pain. The air thinned to copper. Are you waiting for us? I whispered because it felt like church. The dashcam whirred like a fly in a lampshade. The green LED ticked once. He took a step I didn't see so much as feel in the rig's frame. A creak, a give, and for one hiccup of time the windshield replaced the road with wrong angles, the bruised geometry of tempered glass about to spider. Across that geometry, backward and bright as a stamp, our unit number shone. The impact never came. The glass held. We rolled past and were only us again, two people in a box with blinking lights, rattling home through air that suddenly remembered how to breathe. Hector parked, killed the engine, and let the bay echo fill where the diesel had been. I didn't pull the card. I didn't want a camera crown judge of what was real. I kept my hands unclasped and flat on my thighs, the way we teach anxious patients when they start to curl in on themselves. On bad nights I lie awake and listen to surface street traffic pretending to be the sea, and I think about that place where lanes split and the world is nothing but decisions. I know where he is now. He's always in the median, in the middle, in the moment that tells you whether you're going east or west, going home or not. He doesn't wave. He's polite. He's patient. He stands with his hands folded the way he learned to wait for help and never unlearned it, and when we pass he leans, just slightly, into the glass, and I swear I hear the sound it makes when it finally chooses a side. Story 4. The empty apartment call, the 911 call, came from a number disconnected since 2019. On the 17th floor the elevator opened by itself, empty except for a stretcher we never brought. We took the stairs for the last 2 flights because the elevator groaned like a tired animal. 17th floor, Brooklyn high-rise, midnight blue outside the windows. The hallway hit us with bleach so sharp it stung the eyes, fresh like someone had just finished trying to erase something. Apartment 17J was the number on the CAD. I rapped the door with my knuckles, standard 3 knocks, and felt the wood flex under my hand as if someone had leaned against it from the other side. Something shifted inside. A whisper of movement, rubber on tile, a shape backing away or bracing. FDNY EMS. I called. We got a 911 hang-up. My partner Reyes leaned in, listening at the seam, and shook his head. Dispatch broke in on the radio. Callback complete, nobody at that number, line listed as disconnected since 2019. Copy, I said, eyes on the peephole where a pin of darkness blinked. but someone's in there. We tried the super. No answer. The emergency key set rattled uselessly in the old deadbolt. From behind the door came the faintest tap-tap, the tempo of a patient finding the call button in the dark. Reyes lifted his shoulder to the jamb, not enough to break it, just enough to say we could. On the wall, a framed evacuation plan yellowed with age still showed an outdated floor layout, a ghost map where 17J didn't exist yet. Dispatch, verify ANI/LI, I said, thumb pressed white on the mic. The return came back clean. Call origin unknown, number associated with a cancelled landline, last activity tied to a welfare check 5 years prior. You hearing that, Jay? Reyes murmured. We're answering a memory. The bleach burned hotter as air moved under the door, and I imagined a bathroom turned wrong. Tub half full, white swirling to a gray eye. Before we decided to force entry, the elevator bell dinged like a polite cough. The doors slid open on their own. Inside was a stretcher, our model, the newer yellow one, with the safety straps laid open and a neat fan and the cot sheet tucked crisp at the head. We hadn't brought ours up yet. Every gurney in the rig bay was accounted for when we rolled. Reyes looked at me. I looked at the elevator display counting down from L to 17 like it had just come back from somewhere it shouldn't. I stepped in. The cot's frame rattled softly, a language I knew from a decade of carries and tight stairwells. The handles were warm as if someone had been gripped there a moment ago. On the metal rail, a thumbprint smeared a pale crescent, bleached to a ghost of a thumb. In the corner, the elevator's camera tried to focus and failed, iris pulsing, recording nothing or refusing to admit what it saw. Okay, Reyes said, voice pitched wrong. Either the building's doing us a solid, or it wants us to take a hint. He pushed the stretcher back out into the hallway. It rolled too easily, casters humming like a lullaby. Between us and 17J stretched a runner of cracked linoleum, 1,000 wheel tracks fossilized into it from transports past. We parked the cot and turned back to the door. The peephole went black, then clear, then black again like an eye struggling to stay open. I counted down, 3, 2, and Reyes drove his shoulder into the lock. Wood popped. The chain stayed, drawn across with a tired clink. Through the 3-inch gap, the apartment showed a slice of dim. A kitchen with no magnets on the fridge, cabinets gaping, a telephone base on the counter with no cord and no handset, display frozen on midnight. From deeper in, a drain gurgled as if swallowing the last of something it didn't want. Ma'am or sir, I called into the gap. If you can hear me, call out. The only answer was a hollow slap, like a wet sheet being lifted and dropped. We were going to need the irons, but nobody carries a Halligan in an EMS bag. Reyes backed up for another hit, and that was when the chain slid back by itself. A dry, long scrape, links moving with the unhurried confidence of someone sure we would come in anyway. The door clicked open. Inside smelled like the hallway but heavier, the air dense with the sweet, clinical reek of overcorrection. The bathroom door stood ajar, a pooled shine on tile beyond. The tub was brimmed with bleach water, perfectly still except for the memory of a ripple. On the floor beside it lay a coiled phone cord, an old spiral umbilical, its ends frayed like chewed nerves. Above the sink, a medicine cabinet mirror reflected us thinner and paler than we were, as if we'd already missed a few meals. My radio crackled with a voice that was mine, saying, "Transport complete, 217, 1 adult, no complications." The timestamp crawled over my scalp. Reyes held up his wrist, 212. "Control," I said, throat dry, "confirm unit number on that transmission." The reply was immediate, bored. "My unit, my call sign." On the stretcher parked in the hall, the ID sleeve had a tag now. Our rig number on one side, my last name on the other. The ink bled slightly as if dipped and lifted from water. We stood very still. Something crossed the apartment behind us, not in sound but in temperature, a wake that pressed between our shoulder blades and moved toward the open door. The bleach water in the tub pulled inward, a subtle tide toward the drain. From the hall, the elevator chimed again. The stretcher straps lifted in the faint breeze of nothing and splayed like open hands. The doors yawned and waited, and the hallway smelled clean as a hospital that had never saved anyone at all. Story 5. Between sirens at 4 a.m., something inside the ambulance knocked on my window, and it wasn't there to scare me. It was there to keep me alive. It was close to 4 in the morning when I dozed off for a second in the passenger seat. Sirens off, city streets rinsed quiet. A sharp knock snapped me back, the kind you expect on glass, only it came from the inside of my window. Ortiz didn't flinch at the wheel. In the sheen of the windshield, the city lights smeared across it like oil, another face hovered beside mine watching. I blinked and it vanished, leaving the red blink of an empty intersection and a faint oval of breath on my window that didn't match my mouth. An oxygen bottle clinked once in the back, like it had shifted an inch. We hadn't talked since the last run. Teenager blew on the stoop. We'd mapped the pads, pushed drugs, chased a rhythm through his ribs until the ER swallowed him and called the time. The disposable ID band I'd slapped on him, white vinyl, brown ink, should have stayed there. I told myself that's why I was seeing things. No sleep, too many endings, wearing our gloves home. The base radio stayed quiet, but the portable on my chest hissed one of those stray bursts that almost sounds like language. I turned the volume to 0. It whispered again, just enough syllables to feel like my name. Ortiz glanced over. Batteries dying? Must be, I said. We stopped outside a bodega on West 17th for coffee. Ortiz went in. The street felt hung at the second before a snowstorm. No snow, just pressure. In the footwell by my boot lay a hospital bracelet, kinked and damp as if pulled from a sink. Wrong hospital, wrong color, not ours. When I picked it up, the plastic was cold enough to bite. Knock, knock, knock. The pattern came again. 2 beats, a breath, one softer, traveling along the dash like a coin rolling. It stopped when I pressed my palm to the glass. Condensation bloomed, fingers splayed, my handprint doubled, and offset beside it, smaller fingers blossomed from nothing. The rig seemed to breathe, a subtle flex, as if the box expanded and contracted around us. Tones dropped, crisp and clinical. Medic 7 respond, unknown medical, possible unconscious person. Ortiz jogged back, tossed me coffee and threw us into gear. The address hit and we both went still for half a second. Same block as the kid. The siren woke and stretched the city thin. As we rolled, the face hovered again in the windshield's gloss, just outside the merge of our reflections, a half second off my movements. When I lifted my chin, it didn't. When I swallowed, it watched. On instinct more than thought, I tapped a fingertip against the glass. 2 taps, pause, 1. The delayed face matched, but from the wrong side. We hit an empty stretch where storefront windows ran in a polished line. Our lights turned the panes into screens. I saw us, lane and pole banners, a barber's. Red, white, blue slurring its stripes. Then things that weren't there. A hallway with a runner rug from some other building, a door half open with numbers I recognized but not from this block. Each pane offered a piece of a place we hadn't reached yet. In the broad mirror of a closed dance studio, a bathroom appeared instead, gum pink tile, a pitted medicine cabinet. The mirror inside that mirror fogged, and a handprint rose from beneath the glass, not on it, fingers pushing outward like something pressing against ice. The portable on my chest hissed a final time and said, in a dispatch cadence but wrong, "Passenger, wake up." I looked again at the studio window and the angle had shifted. It wasn't the bathroom anymore. It was our rig viewed from the curb. In that shining substitute world I saw myself slumped, mouth parted, one hand loose against my thigh. Ortiz stared ahead. No siren in that reflection, no lights. An unmarked box truck slid fast through a dead red, a blank rectangle erasing the intersection we were about to enter. The face in the glass turned to me and mouthed, "Now." I didn't think, I moved. I slapped the dash hard enough to sting and yelled, "Brakes?" Ortiz stomped. Everything in the box fell forward. Jump bag thumping, the monitor strap whipping past my ear. while the truck tore by close enough to tug the rig with its wind. Our siren's wail skittered off the truck's blank side and came back at us. When the world settled, Ortiz stared at me, chest heaving. "What did you see?" I tasted copper and couldn't answer. We rolled the rest of the way slower. I kept my hand against the glass, palm to palm with the print I'd left. The smaller handprint, offset, no bigger than a kid's, faded in the wash of the defroster and then returned as if deciding to stay. Dispatch bled our address into a new one and then another. Someone closer caught the call. We took a left, then another. Dawn threatened and the city pulled itself back together. At the hospital, Ortiz killed the engine. We sat in the kind of quiet that comes after a storm misses you by an inch. "You good?" she asked again, softer. I looked at my window. My handprint was there, definite, sweat and oil mapped in whorls. Beside it, a second handprint rested, lighter, placed as if in thanks. By noon we'd run 3 more calls. Nothing knocked that didn't have knuckles. The rig smelled like coffee and bleach and heat. I kept catching my reflection in the windshield and waiting for delay, waiting for eyes beside mine. The face didn't come back. The bracelet from the footwell lay coiled in my pocket, still cold, or maybe I only imagined the temperature. When the shift finally ended and the city remembered how to sound like itself, Ortiz tossed me the keys. "You get first sleep," she said. I climbed into the passenger seat and buckled up out of superstition, not habit. The glass looked like glass. I placed my palm flat against it and lifted it away. The print it left sat alone for a long minute, and then a smaller one rose beside it, shy, the two of them aligned like footprints on a trail you'd swear you hadn't walked yet, in the thin hush between sirens, where someone was making sure I stayed awake.